Welcome, guys. We are continuing the ecology portion of your syllabus, and in the last lecture, we studied about the food chain. Now, we'll be discussing the food web. Now, what is basically food web? Food web is basically the interconnected system. It is the interconnected system of food chains. So simply, the food web is an interconnected system of the food chains. Now, what we mean by this term, that is the interconnected system. In the previous lectures, we studied when we were studying the food chain, we studied that the producers form the basis of any given food chain. Later on, start other tropic levels. For example, this is T1 means tropic level. First is this tropic level T1. This is another tropic level T2. Then this is another tropic level T3, or it can go up to T4 or many other steps like that. If we understand it by, for example, this is grass, and the grass is eaten by some herbivore, and it is eaten by some consumer or carnivore, and that very carnivore is eaten by another carnivore. So this is simply the idea of food chain which we discussed earlier. So in food chain there is transfer of energy from one tropic level to another tropic level, but when we analyze the tropic levels at the very base, the tropic levels are not isolated systems. They are not isolated chains of the tropic levels, or they are not isolated systems in which the energy transfers from one tropic level to another tropic level. Rather, what happens, the food chains are interconnected with one another, and this is what forms the food web. So we will explain how the food chains are interconnected. Take the example of this food web. This is vegetation, grass or plants, whatever greenery you see, that forms the vegetation. So this vegetation, you see over here, this animal deer, it feeds upon this vegetation, and later on the tiger feeds upon this animal, that is deer. So it forms a food web. Similarly, another food web is, it forms, sorry, a food chain. So similarly, another food chain is this vegetation is eaten up by the antelope, and the antelope in turn is eaten up by the tiger. This forms another food chain. The vegetation, it's eaten by mouse. Mouse is in turn eaten by wildcat. Wildcat is again eaten by tiger. Now you see these two food chains and these two food chains, they are not isolated. They get interconnected with one another at this very top carnivore level. So this system of food chains which is interconnected, it forms a webbed structure which we call as, or web-like structure which we call as the food web. Similarly, another food chain goes like this. It is vegetation. The rabbit feeds upon this vegetation, the jackal feeds upon the rabbit, wolf feeds upon the jackal, and jackal is lastly eaten by the tiger. So these all food chains, are some other food chains go this way, these all food chains are interconnected at one level. So we say that when many food chains get interconnected with one another, they form a network of food chains, and this is what we call as the food web. Similarly, there's it's and it is important to understand over here, it's not necessary that they will always get interconnected at the top consumer level or at the top carnivore level. It's not necessary. They can get connected at any level. For example, you see, this is vegetation. It is mouse. The mouse feeds upon the vegetation. Then a fox feeds upon the mouse, and the fox is in turn eaten by the wolf. So it is over here that this food chain joins this web. So the food chains get interconnected, and they can get interconnected at many tropic levels, and this forms the dynamic structure of the food web. Now, The importance of the food web, the importance of the food web is that there is not increased pressure on any given type of organism in the food chain. For example, you see this mouse has a chance that it would be eaten by the wildcat, or it can be eaten by the fox similarly. So there is what we call as there is a diversification regarding the food eaten by the different types of animals, as the food web provides a choice, a diverse choice of food for the different organisms. And the food web, in nutshell, we say it is important for maintaining the ecological structure of any given environment and of any given ecosystem.